So this is the data that it has scraped from some of the websites. The other one here, you can see email is, we got the email, contact name is the company name. It got the correct pronoun, industry, cleaners. It got the correct city and the area as well. 100% correct. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I got all my leads to do cold outreach. I chose to do a little bit more manual method instead of just buying leads from already existing lists. And my sort of reason for doing that is simply because, well, if I buy a large list from some service, well, I assume that all the leads has been, already used by other people. So this is like leads that get a lot of people reaching out to them. So I think it's not gonna amount to a very good result. I believe creating your own leads will actually make it better in terms of higher reply rate, open rate, and closing rate, of course. So in this video, I'm going to show exactly how I did it simply by using different tools and ChatGPT to extract different data. So I'm going to show you here. So it's sort of a three-step process. So the idea is to create leads from websites. So you have a website here. The website typically have some contact information. So that's actually the lead that we wanna get, right? To get the website, I use Google Maps. So for Google Maps, I have a virtual assistant. A virtual assistant that's gonna scrape Google Maps based on different keywords. Google Maps will then have a list of websites, right, that have some content. But actually to get the content, we want to scrape the site. And then with that raw content, we need to parse it with AI. And that's actually what's going to give us the contact that we can use. And then in certain cases, you want the VA to also enrich the content with some extra data. So I'm going to show you how I do that. So that's sort of the process. I'm not going to show you the Google Maps stuff because you can automate that with the scripts, or you can simply just have a virtual assistant getting those for you, or you can use an existing service. So what I'm gonna show you is this process here, how to scrape the website and how to use AI to get the data. So at least I'll give you the idea of how to do that. So first I have a very simple script. So the way it works, I'm just not gonna go through all the code because I'm sure that's gonna bore you, but if you want the code, just let me know and I'm gonna share a link to the GitHub. It's gonna use Selenium, right? So we have Selenium WebDriver. What it's gonna do is simply just gonna open each of the URLs up in your browser. And then it's gonna save the data on the desktop. So I'm going to show you how that works. So in this case, I will scrape the content. So it's going to open up the browser. I'm going to show you how that looks like in just a moment. So you can see how it also opens up Firefox, and then it's going to go to the first website and simply just download all the content for the front page. So you can see now it go to the next one, and every time it does it, it takes the content and saves it to a text document. So you can see here in my folder structure, I have this content here, which have a lot of different text files. So I can just show you an example of how one of the text files look like. So it just saved all of it as text. So there's no HTML, there's nothing, it's just the content. So what you're gonna notice here is some of the websites, they actually have email addresses, right? So you can see here, there's an email address here, there's a phone number, 2 different phone numbers, and there's a company name, and sometimes there's also a name of a contact person. It depends on the website, of course. We take another one here. So if you scroll down, here there's a phone number. It doesn't seem like there's an actual email address. And then we go this one here. You can see that there is an email address here. There is an address. There's a company name. There's a phone number, and so on and so forth. So it's going to be very tiresome to actually manually go through all of this and then write down the email addresses and all the content. So that's where AI comes into place. So for this, I have an AI parser. And this is sort of where the magic happens. And I'm going to show you how the prompt looks like. So basically have a script that loops through each of the content files and then take the content into ChatGPT and then ask ChatGPT to actually extract the content. So I have two messages, right? So I have a system message that says the following: you are a helpful assistant designed to output JSON. So this is important, right? You want the data to be in a format that you can actually use in your program. So in this case, we use JSON, and ChatGPT is already very good at actually outputting JSON data. And then it continues as such: you will be given a piece of content, text from a website, and instructed by the user to extract certain information. And then remember to return as JSON. Do not return any translations, only the raw string data. So I'm very explicit about this. So I remind ChatGPT to return the data as JSON. Otherwise, sometimes it's just gonna return, just data. And then I'm very explicit about do not return any translations. So I use this to extract data from websites not in English. And ChatGPT is very happy about translating data. So you have to tell it do not translate it. If you extract data from an English website, it should be necessary to ask it not to translate. But if you're going to extract it from like a German site, French site, or whatever, you have to say do not translate the data, unless you actually want to translate it, but I assume you don't want that. So that's the system message. It sort of just gives a frame of reference for the ChatGPT, what kind of AI it's supposed to be. And then I construct the user message in the following way. So this is sort of a long prompt. So it says, please extract the following information from the content. Remember not to translate the data. So again, I remind it not to translate, because this was an issue I had a lot. So I really tell it do not translate it. Only return the raw normalized data. That is no uppercase and only strings, no lists. So the reason why I did this was sometimes let's say that there was several, if I want to get the city, sometimes there would be more city names. So I said do not return that list, just a string. And sometimes it would uppercase it and so on and so forth. So I try to just normalize the data. This is something you could do on the back end as well, programmatically, but I just try to get the data as normalized as possible using ChatGPT. But you probably want to create some script to also normalize it in the backend. And then I pass in different keys, right? So this is the data that I want. So a key can be, for example, a phone number. It can be a city name. It can be a contact name. It can be a company name. Whatever data that you want to extract. This is what we pass in here as keys. And then I write, if you're not sure, write none. So sometimes if you don't tell it to write none or some other string, it will just input something. For example, what I notice sometimes is if it cannot find the email address, if there's no email address on the page, it's just going to say example@domain.com or something like that. It's just going to make up an email address. So you have to be very explicit about if you can't find the data, you have to write none. And then I pass the content here. So the content is again the text file. They showed the text that you scraped from the website, and we pass that in to content here. And here I pass in some more information specifically about the keys. So for this example, I want the contact name. And in my case, I want the contact name either a person name or a business name. Because sometimes they don't have the person name on the website and just the business name. But if they have the person name, that's what I want to use for my emails because it's more personalized. It's better to send an email directly to a person than to just an overall business email, right? So in this case, the key contact name can either be a company name or a name of a person. Sometimes the name of the person is reflected by the email. For example, John from john@example.com. So this is what I saw many times. The people will create an email address and put their own front name in the email. So this is also a way to actually get the person name if they haven't written that somewhere on the page itself. Other times the person name is part of the business name. In that case, just return the person name. So sometimes they're gonna make the business name their own personal name. If you return a person name, only return the first name and return the pronoun as do. So this is not relevant for English, but in Danish we have a pronoun if it's a single person, and we have a different pronoun if it's a business, which is sort of a singular pronoun. So that's why I have this explicitly. But if you don't have this in your language or in English, just omit it. You can remove that. So if it's a business name, return the key pronoun as I. And if the business name has APS or AS in it, omit that part. So this is sort of like LLC. So if I reach out to someone cold on an email, I don't want to have this formal LLC in the name. I just want to put their name. And for me, I feel like that's more personal and less sort of, rigid. So this is the reason why I've chosen to omit these kind of credentials in the business name, like for example, LLC or something like that. And that is very important to also give examples to ChatGPT. So in this case, I just give some examples of how I want it. So in this example, Lars Larsen is a person name. So Lars should be returned and pronoun is du. And then DK Roof APS is a business name. So DK Roof is returned and pronoun is I. So I just give some examples to ChatGPT how I expect the data to be returned. So you instruct it what you want, and then you feed it some examples. It really helps ChatGPT understand what kind of data to return. And then I ask here, remember to ask yourself what the pronoun should be. Because again, I had issues where I didn't return it correctly, but asking itself, it will really help it, right? In terms of industry, so this is also a key that I put in. So you need to change this depending on the keys that you feed into it. Select only the following that are applicable. So I just return different industry names specific for my campaigns, because what I would do is I would typically scrape data for window cleaner industries, for example. So that's what I would pass in. In terms of area, only return one area, not a list. So that the reason why I do this is because often there would be more areas, and then ChatGPT would return a list of areas. I just want one area. If there's if there are more areas than one, just return the first. And then I'm more explicit about what I mean by area. So by area I mean city or greater area, for example, a state. And then at the end, I said do not return example data. If you're not sure, write none. So again, I'm explicit about this because this happened a lot. So you really have to be explicit about do not return example data. So this is how the prompt looks like. I'm going to show you how that's going to run. So when I run the script, it's going to look like this. So you can see here now that we have some data returned. Let me just move myself here. So this is the data that it has scraped from some of the websites, right? So you can see here email. We got email here, contact name. So it just took, in this case, it just took the domain. This is actually not what I want. So it's a good example of how we can modify it a little bit. And then the pronoun is correct. Industry is cleaners, and then it get the city, and it get the area as well, which is correct. The other one here you can see email is we got the email, contact name is the company name. It got the correct pronoun, industry cleaners. It got this correct city and the area as well. 100% correct. So you can see here how we had the two steps, right? So we just scraped it, right? The different content, and then we had the AI create or scrape the data from the websites, now passed over here to the contact. So now what I would normally do is I would have my VA actually enrich the data, right? So the way it looks like is like this. So I created a very simple dashboard for the VA to go into this dashboard here, and then simply looking through the data. So this is the data that I got from the different websites, and I would give him certain instructions how I expected the data to look like. He would go through and see, okay, everything looks good. Then he would accept it. And then the next one would show. You can see here now, all right, there's actually an example here where there's no emails. It just have none. So in this case, I would actually have the VA go to the website and then look for the email. And in some cases, I would just have him to delete it if there's no email address. So you can see here again, there's an email. You can see here how it got the person name actually, which is correct, and the correct pronoun. So in this case was correct, just accept it, and then next one. So this is sort of an example of how I would have a VA actually enriching the data after it has been scraped by the AI.